Hello, everybody. This is Johns Hopkins with Baltimore Heritage, and we're back with another of our 5-Minute Histories videos. And today I'm in Southwest Baltimore at the edge of Carroll Park along the Gwynns Falls, and we're going to talk about the bridge behind me, the Carrollton Viaduct, the oldest stone railroad bridge in the country. Pretty neat. Want to start by saying thank you, though. Some of you who have tuned in at the end of the last year know that with the kind support of a donor, we had a challenge match. She would match gifts up to $60,000, an incredible amount for us. And I want to say, with your help, we made it. So many of you renewed your memberships. So many of you added on $5 or $15 or more. We were able to make it with the help of hundreds and hundreds of you. A sincere thanks. And thank you for your confidence for enabling us to grow and have a bigger impact in Baltimore. All right, on to the bridge. The bridge was completed in 1829. It was built by the B&O Railroad, which itself was very young. It was started just 2 years before in 1827, and the ceremonial groundbreaking was 1828, the same year the bridge was built. Before we jump into the bridge, let's talk a little bit about what was going on in Baltimore in the 1820s. And for our story, the big thing that was going on was canals. The Erie Canal was started in 1817 and completed in 1825, linking the port of New York to the Great Lakes in Middle America. Port of Baltimore. In the 1820s, there were other canals being proposed, linking Pittsburgh to the port of Philadelphia, Richmond to the port of Norfolk, and of course the C&O Canal linking Washington, D.C. To the Ohio River and the Ohio River Valley. So big economic threats for Baltimore. In the 1820s, a group of leading citizens decided we needed to do something. They were really led by two gentlemen, Philip Thomas, who became the first president of the B&O, and then George Brown, who was the son of financial pioneer Alexander Brown. And they brought people together and formed the B&O Railroad. One of the chief obstacles of this new venture was laying out the route. And for that, they turned to largely West Point graduates and Army engineers, including a gentleman, named Isaac Trimble. Let me get the name right. Just to give some sense of what Isaac was doing, in an 8-week period in 1828, he traveled 225 miles by foot, laying out 38 different possible routes for the railroad. So really pretty extraordinary. As an aside, Trimble was a colleague in college at West Point with our own Baltimorean, John H B Latrobe. Latrobe, while Trimble was out there in the forest hacking his way through, Latrobe was going town to town. He was one of the chief lawyers for the B&O Railroad, and he was negotiating land sales to make way for the railroad tracks themselves. Latrobe, in addition to being a lawyer, of course, was an inventor, maybe best known for the Latrobe stove, or the Baltimore heater as it was known. In addition, he also helped give us Druid Hill Park and was one of 3 jury members on a literary awards panel that gave an award to a young Edgar Allan Poe and got him started. So kind of neat for Latrobe there. But back to the bridge. So in the 1820s, we were worried about canals. And on July 4th, 1828, the B&O had its ceremonial groundbreaking with what it called the Grand Procession. Basically, all of Baltimore turned out to parade through the streets up to Federal Hill. A new march was composed for that event called the Carrollton March. And at the head of the parade, the sort of VIPest of the VIPs, was none other than Charles Carroll of Carrollton, the longest lasting signer of the Declaration of Independence and the wealthiest signer of Declaration of Independence, and a director of the B&O Railroad. On that day when the ceremonial groundbreaking took place, Carroll said this. He said, "I consider this among the most important acts of my life, second only to my signing the Declaration of Independence." So obviously an important step there. When the bridge itself came into being, it was just about 2 miles from the starting point of the B&O. Already the engineers were going to prove to have to be very resourceful in getting this new train up and over the mountains and into the Ohio Valley. But they did so. That chief engineer or architect was a gentleman named Caspar Weaver. He was also from West Point. The B&O had cherry-picked him away from the U.S. Army Corps to come be an engineer for the railroad. And the builder was a gentleman named James Lloyd. He was a master mason from Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, and his family had a long history of building stone bridges for roads in Maryland, so he was a good choice there as well. To give some sense of the bridge, it is 312 feet long. The main arch is 80 feet across and 50 feet above the water. Pretty neat. It's 26 and a half feet wide so that it can hold 2 railroad tracks as well as 2 footpaths for folks who need to use that. It's made of stone from Port Deposit, Maryland, and Ellicott Mills, what we call now Ellicott City. The first trains to go over the tracks were actually pulled by horses. You got out of Baltimore, and then the locomotive kind of took a side turn, and you got pulled over by a horse just in case. And the first president to ride in a train, Andrew Jackson, rode over these tracks in 1833 as he was going between Ellicott Mills and Baltimore. I'm going to wrap up with one final note that I think is unbelievable, totally astounding, and that this 1829 railroad bridge, almost 200 years old, is still in active service. CSX, the modern day B&O, if you will, still uses it. It runs trains over it. And this old stone bridge that originally had horse-pulled carts going over now has CSX trains. And if you want to know how heavy they are, the locomotive alone on average weighs 200 tons. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.